I'm Mel Cook and I'm the PR and Marketing Manager at Visit Norwich, which is part of Norwich Business Improvement District. Norwich Business Improvement District has brought this today. It's the third talk in the Onwards Norfolk series. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before I hand over to Lucy. So the entrance that you came in is your fire exit, and the toilets in the forum are right at the back on the left. So I think that's it. And Lucy, I'll pass over to you.
I was
Thank
just
you.
laughing because poor old Angela was going to sit on the bin. So hi everybody, I'm Lucy Marks. Thank you so much for coming. It's great to see these audiences building up for the talks. I run the Norfolk Network. Norfolk Network is an active and connected business membership community for sort of forward-thinking founders and directors of businesses, of startups and growing businesses, consultants and freelancers, and students and academics. So quite sort of lively. So I spend my days discovering people and championing them and making trusted introductions, and also to give different platforms for our members to speak. So that could be member-only events, or it could be events that are open to the wider community. And this one is a completely new platform for us. So this is Norwich Talks Up Business. And every Tuesday at 12:30 this time until the end of June, we're going to have a speaker like Carole today. So this is quite an exciting opportunity for us to sort of like showcase some of our innovators and some of our business thinkers and some of our young innovators and startups, and also some of our visionary leaders. So it's a real mixture of businesses, and I tell you what, it's been very, very exciting finding and talking to these speakers. So today it is International Women's Day. I do want to say that I'm thinking of women in Ukraine at the moment, women and children. That's, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? But it's also a day to sort of celebrate women all over the place, and I'm really, really delighted that Carole Osborne has come today to talk to us. So Carole has worked really, really hard in her career. She started as an apprentice in a local award-winning agency, and then she got into client services, and then she started running a department of her own at the agency, and then she went out, she took the leap, and she started an agency, Borne agency, which is very successful today. We've had a great discussion. When I asked her to talk, we had a good discussion, and what was coming out of it was her very, I'd say, special leadership style of the times. So please join me in welcoming Carole.
If I sound nervous, I am actually nervous, so bear with me. And I've got my notes. This is about my speech. First of all, thank you for asking me. It's a great opportunity, particularly on International Women's Day as well. And I'm so pleased that you're all here. I'm absolutely terrified that so many of you are here, but just thank you so much for taking the time and coming and listening to this, and I hope that you find it useful. What I've kind of decided to do is I've had to learn as I've gone through my career, so I could stand here and talk to you about what the fundamentals of Agile leadership might be and what you can Google and the meaning of it out there, but if I did that, I wouldn't actually be being true to myself, because I've never even looked at them, so I don't know what they say. So what I'm going to do, what I've decided to do, is kind of bear myself in front of you and actually be incredibly vulnerable and tell you the things that I've got wrong and the things that I've learned off the back of what I've got wrong, and then hopefully it will be something that you could, possibly might be useful to you one day in your careers. So first of all, I'm just going to give you a bit of my background. I left school when I was 16 and had no qualifications at all, and didn't particularly like school because I hate being told what to do, and I still hate being told what to do. Then went to City College and actually got thrown out of City College, and I was the first person to ever get thrown out of City College, which I find and so I lasted there for about 8 weeks. And then my parents have, no matter what I put them through, they've always believed in me. And So my mum one day dropped me off at the front door of an advertising agency and basically shoved me out of the car and said, do not come back out until you've got a job. And I was 16, and then I got a YT apprenticeship in that agency. And there I met a guy called Chris Murphy, who has been my mentor now for 30 years. And one of my big things about leadership and agile leadership is actually the best decision I ever made was to learn from somebody, and he was a great leader. He still is. He's my non-exec director now, so it's weird because he now works for me, which is really bizarre. And he's my children's godfather, so it's been a real massive support for me. And I think when you're in business, no matter what role you play, you need that support from somewhere. So when I first started at CMA, I realised that there was an industry that was full of creativity, full of risk takers and rule breakers, which is exactly what I like. And so I kind of just found my feet, fortunately found my feet. I didn't stay there for very long, I only stayed for a year, but I then moved every couple of years to different agencies in different roles and kind of worked my way through. But in that time, I worked for some brilliant leaders and I worked for some really terrible leaders. And I've learned loads from both. So then, 13 years ago, I had my first daughter. I've now got two who are about to be teenagers, which I think is probably going to be harder than anything I've ever gone through in my career, but I'm bracing myself for that. And I set up, when my first daughter was 13, I set up my first business, thinking that I could just be a bit flexible around having a child and working, and at that time it just wasn't possible because it just took off, and I'm really, really fortunate. I now have an agency called Borne. As Lucy said, I employ just over 20 people who are all super talented, and they've come from all walks of life, all over the country, lots of different experience. They all bring something new to the table, and they all are incredibly individual. So agile leadership is where you really have to kind of think about each person that is in front of you. There are things that I will share at the end of this that I've kind of slowly learned over 10 years. What I didn't realise, and the bit that I'm going to be really open with you guys about, is the past 4 years of my career have been the most turbulent years that I've ever been through. They have really pulled on me to use everything I've learned about leadership and being agile and being adaptable and changing. But I really got it wrong as well, because what I kind of forgot during those years was to actually lean on everything that I'd learned, and I remembered some bits and I forgot some bits, but it has changed me as a leader and it has changed me as a person. So I'm just going to kind of give you a bit, and I haven't timed this, I'm really sorry, so I could be done in 10 minutes or I could be done in 15, but we'll see how I get on. So 4 years ago, I'd learned a lot. One thing I probably hadn't learned was that to be a great leader, communication was vital. And I knew that communication was important, but I don't think I realised at that point how important, because I had no idea what we were about to step into. So 4 years ago, I had an agency of 12, and we won a really big client. And literally overnight, I'm going to say within weeks, we went from an agency of 12 to an agency of 50. And that is where my absolute shocker of 4 years started. Because what happened is, my leadership style wasn't ready to have grown that fast. All I could see was, the bottom line and the opportunities and the shiny new office and all of those incredible things that, you see. But what I didn't see was that the recruitment strategy we had of, shit, we need to get people right now, is not actually the best recruitment strategy you could possibly have. And it brings a whole host of problems. It's also amazing because you meet so many different people, But it was something that I hadn't envisaged would be the situation that it was. And because we got so busy and we were recruiting and everything was kind of exploding around me, I wasn't there for my team as much as I should have been. So I wasn't close. I was kind of not as close to them as I had been when we were an agency of 12. I knew their families, I knew, we'd all socialised together. We were a real family when we were an agency of 12. When you're an agency of 50, no matter how much you're desperately trying to hold on to that culture, it's really difficult. And again, I'll go back to I'd forgotten how important communicating was. So I was trying to do everything. I wasn't really around as much. I was I was still trying to control everything that was going on around me, but I had the wrong leadership style the whole way through, really. Then COVID came a year later. Well, not even a year, 9 months, I think, later, COVID came. And it was adapting again. So we were an agency of 50, and then I had to move 50 people out of an office and into all of their homes, while still trying to maintain the culture of the company that we hadn't lost, but it wasn't there as much as what it should have been. But actually, that 3 months, the first 3 months of that, I was probably the closest I've been to my team for a while, because I remembered I want to be there for everyone. I want to check in with everyone. I want to talk to everyone. We were doing agency things on Zoom, which is rubbish, but at the time it was great because we were still all together in a way. And that 3 months, I'd really got to know everyone again, and it felt great. Even though we weren't together, I felt like I was probably stepping into the right direction. Then after that first 3 months, and this is where I'm going to be really honest, clients cut their budgets. So I had to make a lot of redundancies. So I lost half my team. It was a real struggle, and it was a period of change where, again, what I did is I forgot how important it was to communicate, and I forgot how important it was to be vulnerable, to ask for help, to get support. And instead, what I did was I went into survival mode, and I just thought, I've got to protect everyone as much as I possibly can, and I've got to make these really hard decisions, and I don't want anyone else to have to do it because it's my responsibility, and I don't want to lean on anyone because I don't want to scare them any more than I'm scaring them. And that was how I thought my leadership style had to adapt in that point, So they were all sitting in their own homes. They were all terrified. I'd gone off radar because I was working on this whole redundancy thing that I was going through, thinking that I was doing everything right because I thought I was protecting everyone, but I'd forgotten I wasn't communicating. I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't being vulnerable. I wasn't getting to know everyone and what their needs were again. So for me, my agility and leadership had actually taken a bit of a nosedive. And then, so because I'd forgotten everything that I'd learned over the past 10 years, and I was trying to do all of this stuff and protecting everyone and what I thought I was doing, I then made all the redundancies, and I got to the point where I hit a wall. So I couldn't work. I woke up one day and I was like, right, I cannot get out of bed and get to work today, because what I'd done is I hadn't asked for help. I hadn't been the leader that my team needed me to be, and I'd taken everything on. So not only had I not been the leader they needed me to be while they were going through all of this, I wasn't a leader at all, because I couldn't be. I just couldn't get past the hurdles that I think we'd had to go through. But what happened was the culture of the business through all of that hadn't gone away. We've always had a culture of care and of trust and of open and honest communication. And even though I'd kind of fallen down a bit, my team and my board hadn't. And they picked everything up. And when I was like, and I felt like a child again, because my mum was like, you're just going to have to take the reins because she can't work. And they did, and they just all stepped up, and they kind of brought the culture back to life, and they supported, and there was a dedication, and the work that they were doing for our clients was still all happening all around me. And even though I wasn't there, they cared enough, and they had experienced the culture enough to be able to just step in. So I actually believe that what that did, by taking me out of the equation for a little bit, was change me and my leadership style, because what I then saw was, you don't have to control everything. You've got an incredible team around you who, when it actually happens and you need to let go a little bit, it's all around you. So the best, even though it might sound like the worst thing I ever did, and at the time it felt like it, the best decision I ever made with my leadership style was to step back and actually be vulnerable and say to people, I need a bit of help here. You know, we've got to get through this. And, you know, when you're a leader, for me anyway, you think all the emotional burden is on your shoulders, and you don't realise that they're probably feeling the same as well, and they actually really want to support, and they want to help, and they want you to let go a bit, and, you know, all of those things. So it was the best thing that could have happened, and what it forced me to do was totally adapt my leadership style. So I eventually came back to work, and what I did do, I let go of the day-to-day, and I became the leader again to take the company into the next place. So, you know, what was our ambition? You know, build on the culture, get everyone back together again. The culture is still, like I said, remained exactly the same the whole way through. I was the one that had kind of lost it a little bit. No one else had, you know, and I came back and it was all still there. So I then started to kind of get much more involved in kind of where the company was going to go. Everyone else was doing the day-to-day. We then started to be able to work together again in an office, which felt incredible. And everything that was there when we were an agency of 12 was still there. We were a smaller team. We are a smaller team. What my team have been through is one of the hardest things we've all had to go through, in losing the amount of people that I had to make that horrible decision about. But the values of like care, trust, creativity, putting each other first, you know, working really hard for our clients is all still there. You know, it's all still the fundamental values of our business. And what I've realised is that my role as a leader, and as an agile leader, you know, who knows I've got it wrong, but who can change and adapt around that, is that it is my responsibility to give my team the environment to flourish. And I have to adapt to be able to give them that. Because if they flourish, our clients get the best work. You know, if they flourish, they look after each other. If they flourish, the culture of the company is exactly where it needs to be, because they all want to be there. So I had written down a few things that I did learn after all that. It all sounds doom and gloom, which it was at the time, to be fair. But what I have learned is, I'm just going to read off this because I wrote quite a few down. When I got a team, I had no idea how to be a leader. No idea. No one tells you. It's like when you become a parent, you get handed this baby and you're expected to know exactly what to do with it. I had no idea how to become a leader. So I have learned, and I have learned actually more from my mistakes and my weaknesses than I have the things that I've got right. You have to understand that each person is unique and has different drivers and different things that they want to achieve, and it is your, again, as a leader, I personally believe that it is my responsibility to let them flourish at Borne for their career. Their career might not be at Borne, but it is my responsibility as an agile leader to give them the foundation to have the best career that they possibly can in this industry, because it is a brilliant industry to work in. The responsibility of a leader is to provide the culture and the foundation for the whole team to flourish. It is my responsibility to make sure that I communicate what the ambition is and what I kind of want for everybody, but it's not for me to tell everyone what that is. They're not always going to agree with me, and they have to be able to talk to me about things like that, so it's about providing the right environment. The biggest thing, and I think the thing I've done today, which I'm probably going to regret this tonight laying in bed, but you have to show vulnerability. You have to show that you don't know everything, and I certainly didn't, and I definitely don't now, but showing vulnerability means that you can ask other people, I might ask people in the business, I might contact Lucy, I might contact Chris Murphy, but I've got a big network around me now that I can ask questions to, because I'm never going to pretend I know it all. Always put your team first. They need to know that you have their back. And I do honestly think that's really. I've actually got rid of clients who were incredible to our figures, but horrendous to my staff's well-being, and I have made that decision because I want the talent to be able to flourish so that they're great for the rest of the business and for the rest of the clients. And sometimes that means you have to make hard calls, but they have to know that you have their back. Prepare yourself for difficult conversations. They happen all the time because people bring challenges, and you can try and shy away from them, but it won't do anyone any favours. So if you find it difficult, you've just got to go for it anyway, because you have to steer the ship. Somebody has to steer the ship. One of the best pieces of advice I was ever given about leadership was to always employ people who are better than you, or who bring something to you that you can't bring, and I've always done that. Every single person at Borne brings something that I cannot bring to the table. And I think that's the right thing. I'm never going to, my social media team, I have no idea what they do every day, but they're brilliant at it. And I would never try and tell them what to do, or how to do this or how to do that, because I know that my responsibility is to provide an environment for them to flourish. It's not to tell them how to do their jobs. I'm nearly done, sorry. Drive the ambition and the culture, but definitely don't control it, because you have to be confident enough in your team that they can help you steer that culture and steer the ambition. You need to set the direction, because people need to know where you're going, but where you're going together, not just you on your own. They need freedom. They need the foundation to work to their own strengths. So all of those things for me, if you can remember them, which I didn't, if you can remember them, you can be the best leader for your team, or for no matter how big it is, whether it's 2, whether it's 16, whether it's 100, if you can remember some of those things, I honestly do believe it will make a difference to leadership. And then my biggest kind of takeout on Agile leadership, and the thing that kind of hit me a bit like a ton of bricks when I wrote it down, I actually found writing this really therapeutic, to be honest, is that Agile leadership is about putting you as the leader first, okay? Because it's emotional, it's not transactional. It's not about the company that you work for or the amount of people in your team. It is about your willingness to adapt so that you can be the right leader for the people that need you, and to give them what they need. But if you don't adapt to them and to what they need, you're not going to be the right person to take that team forwards. That's everything.
Fantastic.
Oh,